live?
I think we are.
Okay, good. All right, everybody, we are live from the Attention Era Media Studios here overlooking beautiful downtown Milwaukee. You're watching our 14 out of 24 live Google Hangouts that we're doing today in celebration of community managers everywhere, bringing in topics from all over the board, all having to do with community management and kind of from people all over the world, actually. So this is the 6th year we as a community of community managers are celebrating CMAD, and this is the 3rd year we've done these panels. And we'd like to first give a special shout out to our award sponsors. And so these are the individuals who stepped up and gave some time and some donations to help put some swag and some awards together to ship out and that an awards committee kind of voted on. And that is BTC Revolution, Spot Flockler, Higher Logic, My Community Manager, Online Community Results, socialmedia.org, and Sprout Social. And we're the gang here from My Community Manager. I'm Baru, co-producer at MyCMGR, and also the director of Awesome with Be the Change Revolutions.
Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Rohde, and I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Baru.
Hey guys, Dom Garrett. I help these awesome people out with My Community Manager, as well as am a freelance extraordinaire. We'll go back to extraordinaire. And I also have the distinct honor to be able to bring you the 2nd award of the day. Big shout out, thanks again to everybody that nominated everybody this year. Big thank you to the awards committee who helped vote on everything and go through all those nominations. And the award I'm going to give out right now is for traffic controller, the person that follows the process quickly, routes issues to the correct department. And we practice this with the panel. So here we go, guys. Drum roll. Everybody got it. Drum roll. And the winner is David Dagu, or Dagui, or however you say it. It's at David, you rock. At Deej_BNG. He works for the Bungie community. David was nominated in, I believe, every single category. People really, really love him, and he is incredibly deserving of this award. So congratulations, David. You will be getting a bunch of really sweet swag pretty quickly. So.
Awesome. All right, so with that, we're just going to turn things over to Katie, who will kind of enlighten us on the topic of modern moderation, moving beyond trolls and the banhammer.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all so much. And for everyone out there who's watching, hi. I'm Katie Kobe. I'm head of training here at Feverbee, and I put together this awesome panel of some of the smartest people that I know to talk about moderation. And the whole idea was with our panel is that we didn't want to just be focused on trolls and banhammers. We wanted to take it a step above that and talk about all the really cool things that are happening with moderation and how it's a role that a lot of people can actually get excited about. You're not just, telling people no all day long. So with that said, we have quite a few people on the panel, and I want to have everyone go around and introduce themselves. So I will say your guys' names so that not everyone is speaking at once. But why don't we start with Sarah Hawk? You can introduce yourself.
My name is Sarah Hawk. I've spent the last 5 or so years as community manager for SitePoint. More recently, every team at Feverbee.
Oh, I think you're cutting out.
Oh,
you cut out just a little bit, but we're glad to have you here.
Thanks.
So sorry about that. Next up, Randy Farmer. Oh, you're on mute still.
Hi, I'm Randy Farmer. I've been doing online communities for over 30 years. Very excited to participate in this panel. You might know me better as the co-host of the Social Media Clarity podcast. By the way, Justin's episode is out just now, and or the co-author of Building Web Reputation Systems.
Great, thanks, Randy. Justin, over to you.
Hey guys, I'm Justin. I'm the principal at Communal Group, and currently watching 3 feet of snow accumulate outside my window in New York.
Is that actually happening right now?
It's actually happening. It started snowing like 3 hours ago, and we're on alert for 3 feet. So.
Oh my gosh. Good luck. Jen Chen, how about you?
Hey guys, I'm Jen Chen, currently located in San Francisco, California. I think the worst weather that we get is fog, so sorry about that, East Coasters. I'm currently the community manager for Intuit Demand Force, relatively new to the roles, but I'm excited to be here on panel and share with you guys today.
Thanks. Darren?
Hi, I'm Darren Gough, Director of Community at Fever-Bee. I'm really impressed that this panel is bringing together the best of community and frequent weather updates from both sides of the US. Formerly at a independent money journalism in the website in the UK called Money Saving Expert. I was there for about 9 years, built the community from 0 to about 1.3 million. Been at Fever-Bee since last April, and just really interested in this topic and to hear what the panel's got to say.
Great, thanks. And Aurelia, last but not least.
Hi everyone, I'm Aurelia. I'm a solicitor in England, and I advise online companies on a variety of issues, including data protection, terms and conditions, and moderation. So it'd be good to chat with everyone.
Absolutely. And so for those of us in the US, solicitor is a lawyer. So Aurelia is going to chat. Actually, that is our the first question I was going to lead off with, was to talk about a lot of the legal implications that we as community managers have to be aware of when we're managing and moderating online communities. So Aurelia, I guess we'll go ahead and start with that. What are the key things that community managers have to be aware of when dealing with user-generated content on the web?
Okay, so there are a number of issues that you need to be aware of. These include copyright, defamation of another person, or a user uploading any obscene or inappropriate content for minors. And these issues are going to be something that you have to work with both the users and any machine-led moderation to not only prevent them uploading it, but also ensuring that if they do so, your liability in that content is prevented, and you're able to kind of keep arm's length and any of that information that could be used to sue other people.
Gotcha. So it sounds like it's one of those topics that can be very challenging depending on where you live. Like, we have a very multinational panel right here, and the laws here in the US are very different for you guys in the UK versus even Sarah in New Zealand. So would you suggest that, like, working closely with legal teams to really closely monitor, like, the types of content and the things that are brought into the community is one of your top best practices?
Absolutely. Wherever the company is established is going to be where the territory is, the law that's applicable to you. However, there are some general laws around the world in respect of defamation, privacy of your users, and the general legal rule not to incite or facilitate any content which could be a harassment to other people or derogatory or in any way. So you have to, there are some EU directives which are just specific to us, and some of the laws in the States which just apply to you guys, but however there are general principles that everyone should be aware of.
Okay. On that note about privacy then, what about when a user says, like, remove all trace of everything, get rid of everything that I've ever posted, just, like, delete me? How should we be looking at those types of requests?
Well, it's really the same with moderation and privacy. The law is really reluctant to be very prescriptive and say you have to do X, Y, and Z, because the law knows how quickly technology is moving, what tools are going to be appropriate today, in 12 months' time might be seen redundant. And so what they say is that you have to show that you are on top of these things. In respect of privacy, they're going to want to know that you've informed the users exactly the reasons why you're going to use their content. And if they ask you, if they exercise their legal right for you to take down that information, you're going to have to effectively tell them how deleted, how removed this information is. the law allows you to effectively, delete may not be delete. It might just be put to one side and then rewritten over in a later date. It's all about informing your users exactly the processes you're going to use and them agreeing to that explicitly. If you just try and do things without them knowing, you're going to then look like, you're trying to do things underhand.
Gotcha. Well, that's a really important point. I've definitely used software in the past where you go to, delete something and it's not actually deleted. There's still like a copy saved on the server for, whatever reasons. And so making sure that, I guess the key takeaway here is just making sure that the user is informed of what it actually means, is how to make sure that you stay on the right side of where you need to be.
It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's very complicated. They're having worked closely with Yahoo for 5 years. They needed to keep copies of things. Very bad people wanted to delete their content. Also, the right to be deleted is not universal by application or by country. So let's be careful about generalizing about what must be done where. A lot of this is covered in agreements between the companies and the users.
Yeah, knowing your terms of service inside and out, I think, is a really key starting point as well, because usually it'll cover things like that. But cool. Well, that covers in some of the legal stuff that we should all be aware of to help cover our bases. Let's move on more towards the concepts of self-moderation. This is a question that I want to start off with Randy, but then everyone feel free to jump in. But when we talk about self-moderation, Randy, could you go ahead and explain the concept of what we mean, and then in general open up for discussion how we can empower our users to better self-moderate themselves?
Sure. I use a different term for what we mean. I use the term community moderation. It's giving moderation powers to the users, but specifically not like people often think of when doing moderation, like someone gets the power to ban someone, or someone gets the power to edit someone else's post, or those kinds of things. Specifically, what I mean, for example, in the case of the abusive content we've kind of been hinting at so far, is that users, by flagging content, can develop reputation to hide the content. They mark it as a flag, and as soon as enough people flag it, you can think of it, a really primitive form, as 3 strikes and you're out, and your content gets hidden. This is why I'm worried about the term deleted. It's no longer visible on the site, but I'm sorry, I got distracted by a word balloon. It's no longer visible on the site, and you can appeal to solve the abuse of the abuse reporting problem. This works really well at Yahoo Answers, and it's also a mechanism that's in the Discourse platform. What this does is provide the community a voice in getting rid of terms of service violating content. What it doesn't help you with is with low quality content. We've got to be careful to separate the things that are legal or terms of service violation from, oh, this is not a very good participation or post, or this person is just picking on someone else. Those kinds of mechanisms aren't so effective. You'll still need a moderation mechanism. But I want to leave one note on the table to frame the conversation for this group, and that is, I fundamentally believe that what you need to do is moderate content, not moderate the users. If you have new users come in and they misbehave, if you look at Stack Overflow, it happens all the time. People ask badly formatted questions. You don't want to pull out the ban hammer. You want the community to be provided the tools to help teach new users how to behave. Sure, you need to kill the spammers. Kill them with a vengeance. You can kill them in 30 seconds if you let the community flag things. But the new users, the people who are in a bad mood today, you don't want to blow the user away just because of some bad content. You can get that fixed. So I'd like to throw this open. I know Justin and other people here have a lot of experience with other kinds of sites.
I'd like to add something. Another fact that it doesn't just teach for the community moderation staff.
Sarah, you're cutting in and out just a little bit.
I'm not sure what I can do about that.
Is it happening for anyone else, or is it just me? Maybe it's my internet.
No, we can all hear it.
No, it's happening for me too.
It is? Okay. If you want, you can type what you'd like to say into the group chat, and I can say it on your behalf. I'm happy to do that. Sorry. So we'll wait for just a minute for Hawk to provide her thoughts. Oh, yeah, or
Just
you
to
can
pick
try
up
to
on
just
what
turn off the video.
Randall was saying, Katie.
Yep.
Just in the meantime, while we're waiting for Hawk, we did implement a similar system that Randy's talking about on our community. And it went from, in fact, we were quite worried about giving users the power to be able to remove content. I think we did some statistics on it, and we worked out that for the size of our community, it needed something like 7 or 8 people to click a certain comment. We used it for, we had a spam button, we had an abuse button. Where we specifically used it, we had a community which was based around something called Match Bet in the UK. Now, the idea being that there's a sort of system that people can use to effectively bet through the initial bet, and they get credited with like a promotional bet, and then they've worked out a system to make a small amount of money. Obviously, the sensitivity of that is quite... Sorry, Hawk. Obviously, the sensitivity of that is that it's, you know, the community that we had was all about legitimate legal ways of saving money and making money. There's obviously a risk that can go wrong, and there was obviously a lot of people that were either spammers or very near to spammers and Ponzi schemes and the like. And we implemented that as a specific button in there. And actually, pretty much overnight, the take-up went from a huge amount of irrelevant content on there to the users self-moderating themselves really, really well. And we went from quite a lot of complaints to almost no complaints within the course of a couple of weeks. And the community, the sub-community in there pretty much ran itself. And it went from one of our most problematic to one of our easiest to maintain communities. So it's just, for me, it's just a real-world example of how that can work and how it did work for us.
So I do want to throw a word of caution in there, because a lot of people, the communal group works with a lot of different clients, and you know, it comes up a lot. No, we should just put in a user reputation system, community moderation system, and let's just take the Reddit system, or let's just take the Discourse system, or let's just throw up votes and down votes. User-based reputation, user-based and reputation-based and community-based moderation systems are great if they are designed for the community that they're being implemented in. They are self-reinforcing, or they tend to be self-reinforcing. So if you put the wrong system on the wrong community, it's very easy for the trolls to take over and get rid of all of the good people. So if you understand your community and you understand why people act in the ways that they act, it can be great. If you just put a moderation system in there for the sake of moderation system and it worked there so it'll work here, it's probably going to fail.
And on that, I just want to bring up what Hawk was trying to say. What she said was that instead of teaching your community members how to behave, what you as a community manager learn with these types of tools in place is that you start to see what the community seems to want as a whole. So that's just another important thing to take into consideration as well.
Amen. When you hand moderation over to the community, they tell you what kind of community they want.
I'll actually disagree. I'm going to disagree with you on that one, Randy. When you hand tools over to the community, the people who can game the tools the best will tell you what kind of community they want.
You should read my book.
I have.
Again, the important thing here is not to confuse two kinds of content. The abusive content, which we have a lot of success in removing with these kinds of tools, and then there's highlighting the best content, and you use a different set of tools for those. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I'll accept your criticism and throw it back and say, yeah, you're right. People game things like Slashdot at the upper end to manipulate things, and that's a completely different discussion. Right here, we're talking about ban hammers. No more ban hammers.
Well, and what Sarah says is the important key here is education and really understanding the differences. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Also, I think so I tend to work in very, very divided communities a lot, where when there are existing camps, it's often added an additional layer where one camp will game or one camp will not. If you give tools to the wrong people, if you don't design it well in particularly divisive communities, it can even on the removal side of things, even before we get to the talk about promoting the right kind of content, removing content becomes a weapon. And so, I mean, politics. I was at Huffington Post. One of our clients is Salon. So, we deal with politics and religion, and I was over at Change.org where we dealt with all sorts of divisive issues. So it could be a real challenge, and I would love to hear your take on that one, Randy.
I'll just defer back to you and say building for your community is necessary. There's no universal reputation system for anything. Footballers in Britain are kept on separate sides of arenas. In the United States, they're not, right? And you have to build different mechanisms for different communities. So I'll just agree that we have to design for it.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach here. Well, then let's talk about another facet of moderation, proactive moderation. Justin, I have this one as you leading off on explaining the concept of proactive moderation since you're so good at it. So why don't you start off there, and then I'd love to get into more of a roundtable discussion on what this sort of proactive moderation looks like and how we do it on a day-to-day basis.
So for those of you who don't know, I used to run the community team over at Huffington Post where we pre-moderated 450,000 comments a day. So proactive moderation, I'll simply say is is having a team in place to actively contain and manage problematic content and or promote good content without waiting for users to report it first. And so my take on that one is always, you will almost always have to have a team that's in place that is responding to reactive stuff. You should have a team in place that's dealing with proactive stuff. It's, especially on smaller sites, having someone who can jump in and take care of issues and talk people down from the edge. Deleting content and throwing rules at people never work. It's just people end up running up against a wall and they feel trapped and they don't want to be there, so they'll fight back and they'll get defensive and you'll move them into a corner. If you can, in a small site, send people in to talk people down from the edge, you're going to do a whole lot better. In a very, very large site, unless you have the technical resources to build a reputation and a management system that hands tools over to the community in a meaningful way, a proactive team can be almost essential. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't have a community if all you're doing is responding to the flags that Livefire or Discuss or Lithium or Jive give you, or whatever your platform may be. If you're just responding to flags, you're probably going to fail.
It's a really good point. Jen, since you're one of the people on the panel that is actively in community management and moderation on a day-to-day basis, I'd love to hear any of your thoughts around what the work that you do to help kind of highlight and feature some of the better stuff that you see.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually have a small team of rock stars helping me out, and I would definitely agree with Justin's point on proactive moderation. Our communities support communities. Sometimes people come in and they're not necessarily happy with the product, but when you have people proactively reaching out, responding to comments like Justin mentioned, that shows not only that you're paying attention to your community, but it shows that the company cares. So we've heard a lot of good feedback from our customers on, thank you so much for responding, thank you so much for listening, and that's why I think it's so important to make proactive moderation part of your day-to-day tasks as a community manager.
Making sure that you're getting back to people. I also like the element of it where it's, I think Justin called it like the upvoting and like the featuring of really good content. I think in a way that also subtly influences the community on like behavior and acceptable behavior and like what works and what doesn't work and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
the broken windows.
Go ahead.
The broken windows theory has generally holds true into communities as well. If people will engage in ways that they see other people engaging. If you have an argumentative community, people will be argumentative. If you have a supportive community, people will be supportive. You can actively move a discussion simply by controlling. We've done this on sites before where we will pre-moderate a thread. Everything will get through. We'll just massage the rate at which certain content goes through. So we'll let the good stuff through first and hold the bad stuff so that what people are seeing is better quality content, more positive content. And by the time we release the bad stuff, it's already on the second page. And so nobody sees it, and so it doesn't snowball. And if you can make your whole community that, then you're going to do really, really well.
Definitely, and adding on to what Justin was saying about upvoting and downvoting, I think it's super crucial to do that, because for the good behavior, that encourages maybe new members of the community to engage more. People like being recognized, they like being thanked, and even if I give them a quick shout out on the community, hey, thanks so much, this was a really great post, that'll encourage them to become more and more active. So some of our users started out that way, and then they've actually become super users as they get more active.
You just let a phrase slip in there, which happens all the time when I talk to product managers, and that is, and downvotes. And if I leave any other message for this panel, is don't do it. Downvotes are very difficult to get right, and very few people have gotten them right, and they're used very poorly. Most importantly, you got to remember, there's a reason there's no thumbs down on Facebook, despite people saying they want it. But the truth is, they don't want it. No one wants to have people judging them without any explanation whatsoever, and then their account becomes compromised. You have these people that, for some reason, disagree with you politically on whether or not Arsenal's the best football team, now plugging up all your data and not helping anyone. So if I leave only one word, don't do it. And if you do want to do it, give me a call. I'll try to talk you out of it. It's so easy to think of that as symmetry, but the way I can bring it home for you to make it clear is, ask yourselves, when you buy something on eBay, how many red markers do they have to have before you say, I'm not going to buy anything from this guy? And it turns out the number is 3, no matter how many green stars they have, right? And so these things are not symmetrical. They don't work the way you inherently think they do.
And it also tends to be used as a disagree button. So rather than being based on the quality of the content or the validity of the content, it's I disagree with you, and now you have a signal that says this is bad, but what the signal is intended to be was, no, this is wrong.
Sorry, go ahead. Keep going.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute, but do you think that what if, so it's like the downvote, upvote is like you've got your thumbs up, you've got your thumbs down, you have like an up arrow, you have a down arrow. What if they used like an actual like text cue that says, I found this helpful, or I didn't find this helpful, or I agree with this statement, or I disagree with this statement? Do you think that particular context would do anything to change, or would people still find themselves in the instance of like what Randy said, where people are feeling like they're being judged without any reason, which I thought was a really great quote, by the way. I hope someone reads that.
Yahoo did 3 studies specifically on helpful, unhelpful, and agree and disagree for movie reviews and other product reviews. First, helpful, unhelpful, if you look at it, is the unhelpful becomes disagree by default. Look at movie reviews on Yahoo Movies of a controversial film. The best written review, it turned out the best predictor of the quality of the review was the total of helpful plus unhelpful, because the helpful ones are floating towards the top and the people who disagree wanted it to float back down. Some sites have implemented helpful, unhelpful, agree, disagree, and more, and they've all found it clunky. So the question is, what are you trying to measure? What I always ask my clients is, what do you want to know? If you want to know what good content is, that's fine. Just find out. Ask them likes, ratings, whatever makes sense in your community. It turns out there's no real utility in a downvote, other than maybe a little bit of self-expression. YouTube used to have, I don't know if you all remember, they used to have 5-star ratings. They don't anymore, because it turned out if you turn each star into a number, You averaged the number of ratings, the average rating of all YouTube videos, it was 4.85. To a first approximation, all YouTube videos either were 5-star videos or had no stars at all. Right? They got no utility out of this negative or low quality evaluation whatsoever, so they switched to likes. Unfortunately, they put thumbs down too. I think they just had too much energy left in for people having to say, I hate this thing. But the vast majority of videos, there are some subcategories which have a different case, but the vast majority are massively liked or not commented at all.
I have to agree with downvotes, I think not having the context as to why someone is saying, no, I don't like this or I don't agree with it or whatever, that is what makes it challenging. If there was, I don't know, a mandatory, like, tell me why, maybe that might make it a little bit more helpful, but since there's not.
Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow has a particular mechanism. They allow downvotes, but it actually costs you karma to spend.
Oh, really?
You actually have to spend some of your own to give one down. And the convention at most of the sites, includes the one I participate in the most, is if you give a downvote, there's a social pressure to leave a comment explaining why. Because if it's just a downvote, if you didn't flag the thing to be hidden, you haven't done anyone any service if you haven't told them what they did wrong. Mm-hmm. Right? And they want their community to be this highly curated source of data, right? If you're a programmer, let me tell you, you type in a programming problem, the first 5 links on Google are Stack Overflow, and that's because of this kind of social convention tied to the mechanics.
Good point. Darren, you had mentioned that Hot UK Deals is a site that is with some problems with downvoting. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, there's a fairly big site in the UK called Hot UK Deals. Pretty much as it sounds, people put up deals of products they think are fantastic and a price, and they use a hot-cold system for the community to judge whether or not the deal's good. The way it works is that the deals appear on a forum message board, and they effectively have a graphical front end, and when deals reach a certain level of hotness, they get promoted to the front page, and users can view that and decide if they want the deal. The problem that community has over there, and why I think they've reached a plateau in terms of growth, is that people now use cold to mean anything other than the relative deal to the cost of the product. So, for example, if Apple discount an iPhone by £20 or whatever, and someone puts that on there and says this is a hot deal, people then use cold because it's comments along the lines of this is just another deal by Apple fanboys. It's all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So the comments become much more about the product rather than whether the cost of the item is useful. And then what happens in the community? Then there's now the Hot UK effect. So the following 5 comments are, this is a classic Hot UK comment. People get very antagonistic, and there's a lot of animosity in the community, and eventually the thread just derails and you end up with a bit of a car crash. Where it works better is that when people don't get into that, actually the comments in the following threads are useful things about the deal. Did you know that if you go in this way, there's a code you can save some money? And that's what I think the commenting system was always meant used for. But it now just becomes, quite often it's a mud-flinging fight between people on the thread. And yeah, everything you guys are talking about, when I see it happening, that absolutely resonates. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks. Cool. Well, any other thoughts about downvoting?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. I wanted to bring in one more thought related to proactive moderation that Hawk had mentioned, and she said that her main point related to proactive moderation is that these tools, the proactive moderation tools, really help to prevent moderator burnout and can help to leave your community managers to better strategize and engage rather than police the community. And I think that that's a really important point. For both from a time perspective and definitely a strategy and a time perspective so that you can go out and execute on things that actually matter. But I also think that burnout, when you're moderating in a community, especially more consumer-oriented communities or communities that maybe tend to have a heavy level of negativity in general, it can be really, really just like distracting and like demotivating to be in the thick of all that content all the time. And so I think that that's one area for me of proactive moderation that I like to make sure that I pay a lot more attention to. But any thoughts on that point before we move on?
I would say from a legal point of view, in pre-active moderation, pre-moderation, you have to ensure that if you are going to put the resources in place to do it, that those resources can do it to its full extent, because as soon as you try and say that you have moderated something before it goes out. You have, in legal terms, published it. And if you have legally published it, then that's as soon as you become liable to whatever's been said. So it's something that you can't do it in, it can't be a halfway house. You either do it fully or not at all, and try and do it reactively.
So that is something that's fairly specific to Europe. If you have published it, you are deemed to be promoting that, and therefore you are now liable for whatever it is you published. In the US, we have Safe Harbor, which is great. But I will say on both those things, I'm going to plug machines because I always plug machines. And I know that some people are going to disagree with me on this, but there's some great tools coming out that are getting really good at moderating. There's some great machine-led moderation tools out there that have come a long way in the last few years and will not only give your moderators a lot of breathing room and extend the ability of them to do their job at whatever scale and hopefully save them from burnout by taking care of the low-level tasks, but also if you have a machine that is proactively moderating everything, in Europe you can avoid some of the defamation and liability sinkholes. You still have to be very, very careful. I'm not a lawyer. You should consult a lawyer. But I would be very, very pro adding machines to most any community moderation system where you are attempting to be proactive and are going over about 250,000 comments a month.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so the next set of questions, we kind of covered this a little bit, so I'll just throw it out there and see if anyone wants to bite before we actually move deeper into the tools discussion. But when we talk about proactive versus reactive moderation, I had a question specifically for Jen and Hawk, who are two active community managers on the panel, which is when you think about the tasks that are required by both of those things, by both proactive and reactive, which ones do you prioritize and why?
I think for me, honestly, it's setting up filters. I work really closely with our social media manager, so anytime anything comes through, whether it's a customer issue, especially since my community is support-based, I manage that, or one of my moderators manages that right away. Anytime there's a customer issue, so again, because my customer or my community support base, anytime there's a customer issue that I hear about from our support team, we're usually the first ones to know, so that we can prepare ourselves in case any of that comes in the community, and we're ready with, the right positioning and the right way to help out our customers.
That in and of itself is proactive in a way. If you can have your team proactively telling you when something is wrong before you have your community members telling you about it, then that's also a really good position to be in. Thanks. Right. Anything else on there on proactive versus reactive?
So, in my experience, if you're using off-the-shelf tools for reactive moderation, you should expect about 10% of your content to be flagged. If you are staffed for that, great. If you're not staffed for that, your community manager probably shouldn't be the one doing moderation. You can get outsourced moderators based in whatever country you're currently in for 17 cents a comment and down. Just offload if you're going to be doing reactive moderation, just offload it, because that's just abuse, not abuse, and use your community manager for going in and actively engaging with people and building up a community culture of mutual support instead of just shitting on each other.
Fair enough. All right. Perfect. Well, that leads me into this next topic, which you've already sort of hinted on, Justin, and that is tools and machines and all the really cool things. I think that that's an area of moderation that doesn't get a lot of love, and there's so many amazing things that are happening, and there's so much innovation that's happening that can really take us to new places. So I'll start off with you, Justin, and then we'll go around table, really talking about what are the tools out there that help you to maintain quality in your community while still allowing for having to spend a reduced amount of time on a lot of the reactive stuff. I personally don't find that the default set of tools that come with most platforms are terribly helpful, especially not from a bulk perspective. It's fine if you just got one thing to work on, but would love to hear everyone else's thoughts around tools.
So I will channel Stephen Colbert, and I'll give a tip of my hat and a wag of my finger. So a tip of my hat to the machine moderation companies that are popping up. Crisp Thinking, KeepCon, Community Sift. I'm sure there's some others that are coming out of the woodwork every week. They're doing some really great things. The ones that are enabling a combination of human and machine moderation that bring the best of both are doing some amazing things. There's a company in Spain that's far and away better than anyone else, but they only deal with Spanish content. So a tip of my hat to you guys, a wag of my finger to every platform vendor that exists in the world for community products, except perhaps Discourse. All your off-the-shelf tools suck. And so in terms of tools, if there's anyone out there who wants to build tools specifically for moderators and managing content and conversations, I think that there's a huge gap in the market right now for anyone who's actually trying to do meaningful moderation.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that gap then, and kind of going around robin. Like, if money was no object and like technical resources were no object, what tools would you build? What tools do we still need?
So I tend to work in different. So I like very large-scale communities, and so the issues that I deal with tend to be different from smaller communities. In bigger communities, it's pure volume and the placement of the width of the column and the number of characters and the size of those characters becomes incredibly important, because if I can speed up something by 3%, then it makes a meaningful impact. At the other end of the spectrum, in smaller communities, the tools for managing conversations and managing the culture that's growing is sorely lacking, unless you are reading the front end of your community as you would read it like if you were as a user. There's not much in between. There's been some starts to this. The Discuss It has a moderation tool for the back end. There have been some interesting tools popping up and then dying very quickly around measuring networks and nodes within your networks, so you know who is influential within a community, not just within a social network. But there hasn't been anything that's really stuck so far.
Yeah, I think from a support perspective, when I worked at Get Satisfaction, they had just released a tool called Manage Workspace, which was essentially like a back-end tool for community managers and moderators that did list out all the conversations as if you were on the front side of the community, and then it had all the different like moderation tools layered within that. But would definitely agree that from your standpoint of volume specifically, when you get to a point where you're operating at a much higher volume and you're getting, 100, 150 posts a day that your team has to deal with, and I'm talking about like forum posts, not comments, and even that's probably really low volume for you, but that was a lot for me when I was dealing with it, and just like the act of having to go in and just look at like one thread one by one, like that doesn't cut it. That's completely not possible just to stay on top of things.
The fact that you were excited about the fact that you could see conversations on the back end,
I know, right?
says a lot about the state of our industry. Like that's embarrassing for platform vendors. Like that's what we get excited about. That's embarrassing for vendors.
Just like little things like that. Yeah, I would love to see more community managers. Like when we talk about, this is a completely separate topic, but when people talk about like transitioning their roles and like where do you go after you've been a community manager for a while, maybe you don't necessarily want to do it. I would love to see more community managers step into product management roles at platforms to really bring a lot of that in the trenches, day-to-day expertise, because I think that's like severely missing. Like until you do the job and you understand what the requirements are, it's impossible to try and build a tool set for them.
I couldn't agree more with that, Katie.
Well, thanks. But
Hawk, I don't know if you are speakable again. I'd love to hear what. I mean, I assume you went through a vendor search fairly recently, and you ended up on Discourse, which I know Randy was part of the design team on for the moderation and the reputation side. So I'd be really curious, what you saw out there.
Sure. Can you hear me?
yes.
Hey, let's try it. So,
Oh no, we lost you. Maybe try and mute your video and see if that helps. No, can't hear you. Sorry.
Okay, time.
Okay, she's typing, and then I'll read out loud. Yeah, I would definitely be very interested to hear what you have to say, especially going through a recent vendor search.
It's always hard when you're dealing with vendors because they all check boxes. Yes, we have moderation. Yes, we have reputation systems. Yes, we have profiles. Yes, you can plug in this system or that system. But it's really, once you get into using them, it's, yes, this car has 4 wheels. Yes, it has an engine. Yes, it has brakes. But a jalopy is not a race car, and so it's really hard to pick them with just looking at them.
2 thoughts there, but first, what Hawk was saying was that when she was making her decision, the moderation side of the choice was less important than the front end because she had a massive team of strong moderators. Ultimately, they chose a platform that gave them the opportunity to very heavily customize what it is that they were doing so that they could really make it perfectly tailored to their needs, essentially, rather than making themselves, like forcing themselves into a mold. They were able just to heavily customize everything that they needed. So that, if that helps at all. Basically, it was like, well, didn't really pay attention to that part because we just decided to build our own anyway.
If you can build your own, I'm insanely jealous.
Yeah. If only we all had the time and resources. So we only have a couple minutes left, but there was one thing that I wanted to say, Justin, related to your comment that maybe perhaps is something that we can all end on. But when you're talking about checking the boxes, I think that, and we had talked about this on our discussion call, that context is really, really key, and it's important that we keep context in play when we're looking at things like moderation, because not every situation is the same. Every single community out there is unique, and so the tools that you're going to need for each situation are going to be unique. The policies that you're going to need, really the only kind of like baseline is the law, which, thank you, we have Aurelia here for. But even then, the law is different in the UK than it is in the US than anywhere else in the world. So it's really, context is the big thing that we all have to keep in consideration when we're looking and talking and dreaming about all these different things that we want.
I'm sorry, Randy just posted a link to our chat that I think everyone is now looking at.
Oh yeah. Okay, so no one's paying attention.
Sorry about that. Is there a comment feed for this over on the site? Because if so, I'll post a link. At a November meeting of Octribe, a meeting of online community professionals in the San Francisco Bay Area, we actually generated a list of useful tools. This session was called "Tools We're Thankful For," and I'll be happy to share that with the audience on the website.
Yeah, let's put it on Twitter too, and we can probably have Sherry update our page to include that on there. But let's definitely throw it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I was looking for that link because tools are such a nightmare that community managers, when they get together, want to talk about the tools that they don't have. So they talk about the ones they do have that they're making do with. So this is handy.
Yep, absolutely. People, I'm not going to say that out loud, but that's funny, Darren. Well, with that said, I think that we're getting just about towards the end here. according to my marker. I'm not too sure yet. But are there any other comments if anyone wants to throw out, kind of like last sort of like round the table discussion before we sign off, that you want to end the day with?
I just wanted to briefly bring Aurelia in. There's a part of legislation in the UK, and this will be quite specific, called the Section 5 defence. Aurelia, I don't know if you know much about it, but it was part of the defamation law rewrite. But my understanding of it is that it basically absolves the platform for having to negotiate disputes between two parties. Do you know much about that?
Yeah, it's tricky with that specific law. I think for anyone trying to absolve their liability from any of these, you know, be it moderation or privacy, it's going to be very difficult. And I think that's where we have the kind of loggerheads between tools and human liability. And in the end of the day, the law will try and, you know, pin it down on the human. I think when it comes in respect of tools, I think from the legal viewpoint, they will always look at whether your tools are suitable for your community size and presence. And if it doesn't fit, you know, if it's a massive community and the tools there just aren't the most advanced and don't have the much resources, then, you know, you're going to be found liable.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys. That was absolutely fantastic. I know that Twitter was buzzing. The conversation that you guys were having on the side and the back and forth was absolutely phenomenal. So thank you very, very much for that. And just so everybody does know, I grabbed the link that you guys put in there from the chat that you were talking about, Randy. So I'll go ahead and tweet that link out in just a minute here from my community manager, and then I'll also add that to the page for this specific hangout so that people have that resource to check out as well. So, awesome. What do we have coming up next, Brew?
Well, let's see here. I believe coming up next is the governance of growing open source communities. So again, guys, head over to cmad.co, click on the schedule for the broadcast, and look up the next hour, and we'll see you over there. And also, we'll be giving away another award. And what's that next award, Tom?
That is the Diplomat. That handles all interactions with tact and grace. I actually know that we do have a finalist in Sarah, who's actually on this panel. So tune in to see if she's the one that wins in approximately 10 minutes.
How come voting for you?
All right. Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks. Happy
Thank you very much.
Manager Appreciation Day.
Thanks so much.
Bye.